Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have a returning guest, Ethan Beute. Ethan is a Chief Evangelist at BombBomb, co-author of Rehumanize Your Business and Human-Centered Communication, and the host of the Customer Experience podcast. Ethan has spent the past decade helping business professionals be more personal and human through video messages. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this awesome conversation with Ethan. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the return invite, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, Ethan, could you share with our listeners, those who have not tapped into your awesomeness as yet, a little bit about your journey, how it is that you got to where you are today?
Sure. I built a career in local television. So I ran local marketing teams inside local TV stations like your local ABC or NBC or Fox station in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in Chicago, and out here where I am now in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I was kind of bored of the work. I had been doing it for some time, and so I started doing project work with a variety of different people that I knew, including the two co-founders of BombBomb. And I just really liked what they were up to. I thought it was interesting, and so I joined them as the first and only marketer over a decade ago, as you were kind enough to mention in the introduction. And in that time, I mean, just the growth in team size, customer base, revenue, it's been this dramatic journey of transformation, and that's been happening at the same time that I've been really in a front row seat of this movement to replace some of what is typically faceless typed out text. Think about emails, social messages, text messages, Slack messages, all this faceless typed out text that we rely on every day, replacing some of that with simple personal video messages. And so I've done a lot of learning, teaching, practicing. I've sent more than 12,500 videos myself now. As you already mentioned, I've written a couple of books on the topic. And it's just been a joy because, you know, as it says in the title of the first book, Rehumanize Your Business, this really is about restoring some of the missing human elements that have been so useful to all of us for so long, that have gone missing as we've increasingly gotten digital and virtual.
Ah, very nice. Okay, so your most recent book, Human-Centered Communication, that was released in September, right?
Yeah, October. We were definitely telling people about it a lot in September, and it started shipping in early October. Yeah.
Awesome. So could you share with us maybe, I would say, the main pillars that book is built on? Like, who is the book for? What is the book about? And how can it really help you to up your customer service game?
Sure. If you rely on connecting and communicating in digital, virtual, and online spaces, then this book is for you. I know that's really, really broad, but really it is loaded with philosophy and then more practically strategy and then more practically tactics to help anyone connect and communicate more effectively in the face of ever-increasing digital noise and pollution. So we all know that these spaces that we operate in are noisy, right? Inboxes are overloaded, message boxes are overloaded. We're getting spam texts and spam calls. Now I'm bleeding into pollution. It's difficult to know who and what to trust. We feel some sense of overwhelm just keeping up with all the notifications. I don't know about you, but I'm in like 5 Slack channels, and they always seem to be loaded with more new messages than I can possibly keep up with. And so this is obviously unsustainable for individuals and for organizations. And so Steve, who is my longtime friend and team member, our chief marketing officer here at BombBomb, my co-author on Rehumanize Your Business, wanted to take this on directly. Obviously, video does play a role in it. We can get into the nuance there. It specifically helps fill in the void of the visual and emotional impoverishment of so much of our digital communication, in addition to the layers that it adds in terms of, communicating your identity and verifying it because it's you on the screen. There's no one that can fake being you, at least at this point. And so we roped in 11 of our expert friends. We have a number of sales and marketing leaders. We have a marketing futurist from Salesforce. We have an emotional intelligence expert with 7 U.S. patents in the analysis of facial coding data. We have just a number of different people that we brought into this conversation to figure out how to make sure that the way we're reaching out and engaging people puts those people's needs and interests first in order to generate better results for everybody. And so that's what we're doing. We're blending human-centered design with our daily digital communication. It does rely on Steve's and my expertise and experience, but we also involve many other people in the process. And the feedback so far has been very, very positive.
Very nice. Very nice. So one of the terms that you used in your book, customer obsessed and cult followed, Apple, came in at 7.8, the most human brand across all industries. And then you had USAA, a nearly 100-year-old financial services organization, with a score of 9.4. What does a company need to be customer obsessed and cult followed? That people want to follow that brand. And then I'd like you to also talk a little bit about loyalty, because I know a lot of companies have loyalty programs, but to me they're more like, I don't know, I just don't see them as true loyalty programs, because what they're doing isn't necessarily making me want to be loyal to them. So how can you really get your customers to want to be intrinsically loyal to you?
Great questions, and the answers to both are remarkably similar, so I'll put them together. For folks who are listening, what Unique is referring to is a study that Steve and I leaned on. I think it was in chapter 2 of this book, but it's the Lippincott Human Era Index or something like that, and it was a survey of hundreds of company leaders and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of consumers, and they were trying to identify the most human brand. And I don't remember off the top of my head, and I don't have the book at hand, but they asked 3 particular questions. But really, I can answer both of your questions without listing those. It is a really interesting study. If you just search Lippincott Human Era Index or something, you'll find it. It's not hidden behind a gate. You don't need to type in an email address or anything to get it. It's a really interesting study. It really comes down to how we make people feel. And I'm going to go to Shep Hyken, who we featured in chapter 11 of Human-Centered Communication. He's a customer service and customer experience expert. And one of the things he's been talking about lately is the difference between repeat business and loyal business. And the primary difference is the emotional connection that we feel. Now, the emotional connection, one of the reasons that I think USAA, that 100-plus-year-old financial services business, beat out companies like Apple or Southwest Airlines or some of these brands that people really, really like and respect and feel connected to and would rank as human, is that this is an interesting one. This isn't the only way to do it, but they answer their phone. I'm actually a USAA customer. Their hours are pretty broad. So if I want to call them at 6 o'clock in the morning while I'm drinking coffee before I, get into the work of the day, or if I want to call them in the evening or any point during the day, you can actually talk to somebody and they'll answer your questions and they won't rush you off the phone. And they're just very available and approachable online and on the phone, et cetera. They also have an interesting thing where the only way into being a USAA customer, now I'm getting a little bit too specific about their branding and positioning, but it's for U.S. military and their families. Now, my father was in the Air Force. I have no military experience myself, but because I am his direct descendant, I'm able to be a USAA customer. But they have this other layer of in and out. And it doesn't have to be as clearly defined as being, a military member, for example, or a formal member of a group. But the more you can create this kind of in-group, out-group scenario, the more people who are in feel like they're a part of something, the more you treat them as individual human beings as opposed to sources of revenue, the more you treat them as human beings rather than as numbers, customer numbers, account numbers, the less you make them restate themselves over and over again, the less you make them verify their identity over and over again, because they've already done it once. There are a lot of things you can do to make people feel valued and appreciated, like you respect their time and attention, and like you see them as a partner in success whose questions you want to answer and problems you want to remove and opportunities you want to help them capitalize on. It really comes down to how we make people feel, how we make people feel about themselves, how we make people feel about us and our sales reps or our service reps or the other humans they come into contact with, the way they feel about their problem or opportunity, the way they feel about our product or our service. The more we can keep in mind as we're making decisions, as we're designing systems and processes, as we're designing messages and digital experiences, now I'm getting into kind of the what we take on in human-centered communication, the more we can keep people's needs and wants and the way that we make them feel, the emotional resonance that they leave each of these individual experiences with, the better off we're going to be.
Amazing, amazing, brilliant. All right. So that definitely answered both of my questions. And I'm so glad that you've been touching so much on emotional connection and authenticity and just being really connected with another human being. Are there maybe 2 or 3 indicators as a representative or a manager or an employee in an organization that will kind of guide you to know that you're truly connecting with someone? Because I imagine connection looks different depending on each individual. It's not the same. You wouldn't connect with each person the same way. But is there maybe some guiding principles or triggers that you could use possibly as indicators to know that you're on the right track to connecting with this individual?
Yes. I mean, a number of different people will do it in different ways. Some people do it through survey mechanisms and other feedback, NPS, and going beyond just the number, but getting to kind of the scores and the sentiment. Some people will use retention or expansion or, other financial measures to suggest loyalty. There's no foolproof answer to this. I wish I had something better and more concrete for you, but I will give you some concrete steps that I know some people I really like and respect are taking, which, big idea here. It is difficult to create customer loyalty. I will add, it is difficult to create a remarkable customer experience without creating a remarkable employee experience and without employee engagement and employee loyalty. So something that I've heard from a number of people is that they do some form of course, being very thoughtful about what it's like to be on the team. What does it feel like to be a team member here? Do I feel valued? Do I feel appreciated? Do I feel like I'm making a contribution, not just to the world at large, but am I making a contribution day to day, week to week, to the improvement of the business and to the improvement of customers' lives? And so, something that I've heard really good, thoughtful, engaged managers and leaders doing is that as part of their meetings, let's just assume you have like a daily or a weekly stand-up or some kind of a team meeting, they'll come up with different questions, but they're all kind of around the idea of, tell me a story that happened this week where you were able to solve a customer's problem or answer a customer's question, or maybe where you broke the standard rules of the playbook, where you went a little bit out of your way, or where you got an amazing piece of feedback. And, what you're looking for there isn't, those amazing over-the-top surprise and delight stories. What you're trying to do is just create this culture where there's an ongoing internal conversation about putting other people's needs first. Sometimes people are asking these about helping out your fellow team members as well, going out of your way to save someone time or to pick up where they left off, or maybe someone had a team member had a personal challenge or a personal crisis during the week and you filled in for them or covered for them or that kind of a thing. The more we can keep this top of mind by asking people to share stories, either in a one-on-one or a group setting, the more we're establishing that other people matter and that the feedback people provides us matters. The way that we make other people feel matters. And so it's a very simple, practical thing to do. And I think for maybe a hard-driving, hardcore manager, it might feel like a waste of time, but I promise you will have a much more engaged team 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year into a habit that looks something like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Excellent. So we really need to ensure that we are truly having those kinds of conversations that we can connect with people. And I love the fact that you mentioned that it's all about having a remarkable internal employee experience, because everything starts from within. Video is something that is mentioned predominantly, of course, because BombBomb is all about video messaging. But let's say our listeners that have tapped into this episode didn't hear your previous episode with us last year, and they're not too familiar with video messaging and how it really works. I can, attest, give a testimonial in this interview and say each time that I interact with Ethan and I send him an email, he responds with a video message, and it blows me away every single time. So Ethan, could you share with me why video is so impactful? How does it work? And, what kinds of messages can you give with video? Is it only for tutorial-based kinds of conversations, or can it just be simple responses and messages instead of actually, written communication?
Yeah, really good question. It's a big one, too. So I'll take it on in a I'll start easy and try not to go too deep, and then let you redirect me as you would like. But no problem. In general, anyone listening can imagine how many times they receive or send a typed out message during the day. Usually it's in the dozens or so. And so much of what we're trying to do, some of these are important and valuable messages, and yet we're restricting ourselves, because it's just become normal, to a form of communication that isn't ideal for many of those messages. And I'm talking again about faceless typed out text. The same black text on the same white screen that doesn't differentiate you, doesn't build trust and rapport, and doesn't communicate nearly as well as when you simply look someone in the eye and talk to her or him. And so this video messaging movement is just looking for opportunities to record a simple video. It might be 27 seconds, it might be 2.5 minutes, and sending it to one person or more people in order to do one of 3 things in particular. 1, establish or reestablish personal connection. So you and I, Unique, have never met in person. I hope to one day.
Yes,
but in the meantime, you can feel a little bit like you know me, because, I'm sending a full version of myself, the next best thing to being there in person, because we don't communicate all the time. We've been privileged to communicate back and forth quite a bit over the past year or two, but it's not like you and I talk every day. And so, it's been a while since you heard from me or since I've heard from you. So I'm going to initially establish, and then now it's reestablishing some degree of psychological and emotional nearness. You feel a little bit connected to me, and we can do this with our team members. So many people are working remotely. We can do this with our prospects and our customers. We can do it with our partners, our vendors, our suppliers, integration partners. All kinds of different people in our business ecosystem can feel like they know us before they meet us, or be reminded of what it's like to be with us. And there's just a simple joy and benefit in that. So number 1 is personal connection. Number 2 is managing our emotion or our tone. There are so many things we try to do in typed out text that are just really, really hard to do, because text doesn't capture the richness of human communication. It doesn't capture subtlety or nuance. It doesn't capture excitement or sincerity or gratitude or concern or appreciation, some like all this kind of soft, wonderful human stuff. If we need to provide corrective feedback to a team member and we don't want to wait until the next one-on-one because that's scheduled 4 days from now, we need to provide that corrective feedback sooner than later. So much better to do that when you can communicate it in a way that your intent and your sincerity and your interest cannot be confused. If you type out a message and send it to someone, it's up to them to determine, are you, do you really mean it in a positive, constructive way, or does it come across passive aggressive? It doesn't really matter. You can try to control it the way that you write it, but it's really up to the other person to make the decision. When you send a video, there's no mistaking it. This is how humans have been communicating for millennia. We express emotions through our faces, and we read emotions from other people's faces. As a parent or as a leader or manager, you've probably had this some version of this conversation with, your child or with your direct report. Hey, no, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right? And so we all know that the way we say something matters. So number 2 is emotion or tone, and number 3 is detail or complexity. There are a number of things that we try to explain, whether we're answering someone's question, whether we're just adding an attachment to the email and, pointing someone to page 12 to look for something in particular. We can break down detail or complexity. We can explain things in layperson's terms. We can show and tell with a screen reporting. We can walk with a screen recording where we can put ourselves in a little box or a circle and put a document or a report or a contract or a proposal on the screen and walk and talk someone through it. And so whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in customer service, whether you're in account management, whether you're in leadership or management, no matter your role or function, there are opportunities throughout your day and throughout your week to do these things in a still, you can still enjoy the benefit of the asynchronicity of digital communication. I clear my inbox when it's convenient for me, and some people are, getting my message and engaging and responding immediately. Some people are doing it an hour later or a day later, or sometimes even a week later, whenever it's convenient for them. So there are a number of benefits to all of this digital communication, but we need to look for the spots to restore the real human-to-human elements and the human-to-human qualities that make the communication, this is the key, more effective, right? This isn't about video for video's sake. This is about using video because it's better at certain jobs in terms of helping other people out, making ourselves clear, etc.
Amazing. All right. Love those 3 points that you brought across why video is so important. And we'll definitely have them highlighted and singled out in the show notes of this episode so our listeners can really gather and gain and feel the impact of what video messaging can really do for your business. All right.
Can I add one thing really quickly?
Of course.
Simple, casual, conversational. This is just you and your webcam, just like if you're getting on a Zoom call or a Skype call or a Microsoft Teams call or a Google Meet call. This isn't fancy. This isn't scripted. This isn't edited. This is just you talking to other people or kind of showing and telling what's on your screen. This is very approachable. You can do it in email. You can do it in LinkedIn messages. You can do it in Slack messages. You can do it in all kinds of different places. I just want to walk it down so that anyone that isn't familiar doesn't think, oh, I need fancy equipment. I need to edit video. This is going to be really slow and cumbersome. This is just quick, easy, lightweight video communication for the benefits we already described.
All right. Awesome. So accessible to all. Okay, Ethan, can you share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Gosh, there are a number of things that come to mind. Some of the easy ones that are kind of like layups, I guess. Obviously, email. I know that's really old-fashioned. And it's silly to say, but there's just so many benefits to it. And I find it so manageable at some level. I use it as a to-do list at some level. I use my phone as the screening tool so I can swipe and delete the emails that aren't so important or that are quick to deal with. And so when I get to my laptop, I only have the good ones. So that's kind of an old-fashioned one. LinkedIn is obviously super useful for meeting people and exploring ideas and even exploring your own ideas and creating conversations around them.
Right.
In terms of a hot app or a hot tool, I'm not really a tech gadget app person, so I'm not really looking to stay on the edge there. I keep it pretty simple, and whatever my team is using, I'll wind up using. One of the tools we're using more and more here is Miro, M-I-R-O. It's kind of a visual collaboration tool. Think of it like a Google Doc or a Google Sheet, but with a lot more different, unique collaborative functionality. And again, it's a bit more visual. So I guess that's one I'll offer.
Okay, Miro. Nice. So we'll have the link to Miro in the show notes of this episode. Could you also share with us maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago, or even one that you've read recently that has left, somewhat of a memory, a good memory, or an impact on you.
Sure. I read a lot. I'll go with an old one and a new one. I don't remember what I told you the last time you asked me this question.
That's okay.
So hopefully the old one is not a repeat, but a book that I just absolutely love. I found it in a used bookstore in the mid-1990s. It was printed in 1973, and it literally fell apart in my hands finally as I was doing the research for human-centered communication. And this book is called Small is Beautiful. And the subtitle is Economics as if People Mattered. So it's a human-centered approach to economics and the financial system at large. It's actually a collection of essays by a gentleman named E.F. Schumacher, Ernest Schumacher. And he was writing in this era where people were really trying to figure out how to evolve out of this industrial mindset, kind of mass markets, mass production, anonymity, interchangeability, standardization, a lot of dehumanizing work for the people executing it. And so I found that really inspiring and informative. Again, I've read it several times, but I reread it as I was doing the research for human-centered communication. So that's an older one. And then a much newer one is called Restoring the Soul of Business by Rashad Tabakawala. And he gets into the same divide. And it's, he speaks to a really current tension that I think we would all recognize is what is the proper place of people and what is the proper place of machines? How are we to work together? It has echoes back into this kind of industrial revolution, industrial mindset that kind of was dehumanizing. And of course, now it's manifest again between robotics from a physical standpoint, automation and AI from a thought and analytics standpoint, just wrestling with what makes humans uniquely powerful, what brings humans to life, what do people find engaging, both on the employee and on the customer side. And so the more recent one is called Restoring the Soul of Business by Rashad Tabakawala, and love that book too.
All right. Awesome. So we will have those books that Ethan has shared with us in the notes of this episode. Now, Ethan, could you share with us what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Gosh, really good. We're doing kind of a hard reset on a lot of our training. And so I'm right now I'm in this mental state where I'm taking this broad sweep of all the things that I've learned and taught over the past decade at BombBomb. And it's a lot, obviously. And, it includes 2.5 books. There's a half book in between these two that turned out to lay out in about 128 pages. And just updating it, making it more contemporary, because this opportunity is for everybody, as I already mentioned. It's easier to do than most people think. There are tens of thousands, if not a couple 100,000 pioneers actively engaged in this. And it brings me to life every day to know that I can help more people, A, understand the opportunity, and then B, start going down this road where we actually try it. Am I doing it right? People don't seem to be responding, or people are responding incredibly well, and like just getting people on the right track and moving them forward. And so just kind of in this reflective review state in order to update and recreate along with some team members is it's exciting and encouraging. And if anyone ever has any questions about any of this, I'd love to hear from them directly.
Great. All right. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, of course, we need to find out how our guests can get in touch with you, Ethan. So they've listened to this episode. They're quite intrigued by the new book, Human-Centered Communication. They probably want to tap into your podcast and maybe even reach out to you directly. How can they reach you online?
Sure. 2 ways to reach me online. One, if you've listened to this point in this conversation, I would be happy to hear from you. My email address is Ethan, ETHAN, at BombBomb.com. That's BOMB.com. Or reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Ethan Beute. Last name is spelled Beute. So those are 2 ways you can reach me directly. You can learn more about both books at BombBomb.com/book. And you can check out the podcast at BombBomb.com/podcast.
All right. Awesome. Now, Ethan, before we go, could you share with our guests a quote or a saying that you have that maybe during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to get you back on track or keep you refocused. Do you have one of those?
I don't, again, I probably shared with you a philosophy that we developed internally here, a team here at BombBomb, which is be of value and abundance will follow. This idea that the more we lead in a spirit of service and support and help, the rewards come subsequently. Another one I'll add, this is just a mantra sometimes, like I run a lot. I run and walk and hike a lot. And oftentimes I'll listen to music or listen to a podcast, but I will also, take the earbuds out for extensive periods of time just to be with my own thoughts. And sometimes I'll just cycle on a mantra, which is, being kind to myself and being kind to other people. I know it seems simple,
but it really goes a far way.
It's so easy to get caught up in what other people need, what other people want, the pressures you're putting on yourself, different things that are on your calendar and your schedule, and things can feel busy and overwhelming. And, if we stop and think about why we're really here, it is to be in relationship with other people. And I think leading with kindness is not a soft thing to do. It's actually a very challenging thing to do. And it is foundational to all good things.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Well, thank you so much, Ethan, for jumping on this podcast for another experience with us. It was amazing as usual. You delivered exceeding my expectations as always. And we just want to tell you, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule for sharing about your new book. All that BombBomb is about, video messaging, just being really authentic, having that emotional connection, and just talking about everything customer experience. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invite. I appreciate the way you approach these conversations, and it was a pleasure and privilege.
So just want to remind our listeners, please feel free to hop on Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community, and feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.